My name is Erika Nunez. I'm 21 years old, and I'm a queer immigrant from Mexico. If you're watching this, that means I've been arrested because of my part in a civil disobedience action. I first came into the U.S. from Mexico when I was 6 months old. I grew up knowing that I was undocumented. I knew that my legal status was very different from that of my brothers and sisters. I didn't realize what the legal limitations were, obviously, until I was much older. I didn't know like the opportunities that would be cut off for me until I was 12 years old. That was the first moment that I knew. It was sort of like an actualization of everything that my dad had told me growing up. I had saved like $300 or so from a summer of babysitting my sister's kids. And I had been putting them in this like really gross jar of like old mayonnaise, I think. Like the mayonnaise was out of there, but it was like an old empty jar. And it was like really crusty and nasty. And one day I decided, you know what, I'm going to get a bank account because I'm going to grow up and be a really smart like business lady. So I made my dad take me to the bank, and I went right up to the clerk without even waiting for him. And I like tried to fill out the application, and she thought it was really cute at first, and she was letting me do it all by myself. And so I was filling out the application and stuff, and I was like, Dad, like, what's my social security number? You know, like I went back to tell him. He was like, oh, you don't have one. He's like, you need one for this? And I was like, yeah. So I went back and I went to go talk to the clerk. And I was like, yeah, I don't have a social. And she goes, well, I can't take your money then because that means you're illegal. And I started to cry in the middle of the lobby. And I kind of like got really upset and like had a tantrum. And my dad had to drag me out of there. And I was like, I cried the whole way home. Part of it was obviously because she had called me illegal. But secondly, it was because I was so disappointed that I wouldn't be able to get this bank account. You know, it was such a little thing to everybody else, but to me it was like such a monumental moment in my life that had been taken away from me. And even more so, it was sort of like, when will I ever be able to have one, you know? I was like, so what do I have to do to be able to do all these things that I want to do? And he says, well, I don't know. He goes, the best thing for you probably is to get married, is to marry someone. And you'll get your papers that way. And he goes, and we can figure that out. Trust me, like, I'll figure it out. And now I hear that, I think about that, and I hear the option of, like, getting married for papers, and realize that's also not applicable for me because as a lesbian, same-sex marriage can't be used to petition for residency or citizenship in the U.S. So there you go. Like most immigrant parents, though, my dad knew that a way for me to get a future was to get an education. So he would tell me, you know, to work hard. He'd always say, like, Erika, I did not travel 3 days in the desert with your mother so that you wouldn't do your homework, you know? Like, don't sit there and not do your homework after everything I've done for you. So I would work really hard. And I did really well. I got accepted into a scholarship program at the end of my 9th grade year. And I found all these colleges that would accept me, and I applied to them. And I actually got into 3 of them. And they were all willing to give me full rides, which was great because obviously I would be expensive to have if I needed, you know, I needed full aid. And one of them actually that accepted me was my dream college. It was Bryn Mawr College. And I'll be a senior there in the fall. I can't even count on my hands how many times I would get up and be like, you know what, I'm going to drop out. I'm going to go back to Mexico. I'm tired of doing all this college shit. There were so many times where I'd just be like, forget all of this, you know? And it would always be, you know, one of my coaches from the scholarship program that would be like, you know, you have to keep going. Like, if you give up, like, you know, that's like the worst thing you can do. I have no idea where I would be today without them. So for me, it was harder to come out about my legal status than it was for me to come out, you know, about my sexual orientation. Part of that was because I obviously go to an awesome school with a really supportive community and also really strong LGBTQ presence. But I guess it was hard for me to come out about my legal status because the first time that I tried to come out about my legal status was to one of my closest friends. We were like 10 years old, and I remember telling her, like, I wasn't here. She was complaining about why I wasn't at her birthday party one summer. And I was like, I was in Mexico, and it took me a long time to get back, you know, because I had to cross illegally with my mother. And instead of, you know, saying like, oh, okay, like, I understand that must have been hard or something, she called me a wetback. And I was obviously really upset because it's one of my closest friends calling me like a racial slur that I would like kill anybody else for calling me. I chose to become involved because I want my family to be able to take like this culture of fear and, you know, throw it right back, you know, kind of say like, F you, like, I'm not going to be a victim to this. See, I hate that my little sisters have to memorize a series of numbers, you know, they have to memorize my dad's, they have to memorize mine. My other sisters, just in case, you know, my mom gets deported, just in case she doesn't get back home from work, just in case she doesn't get home from the job that she gets paid $4 an hour, and she works like 10 hours a day, and she gets maybe 1 day off every 2 weeks, you know. And I hate that my mom has to leave for work every day not knowing when she's going to see my sisters again. I hate that my mom has to call me, you know, asking me like what rights she has as an undocumented immigrant. She has to call me saying, you know, I don't think I have any. And just the sense of fear that I see in my family is something that is why I chose to become involved in this action. I want to show them that they don't have to be afraid, that we can come out about who we are, whether it's our legal status or our sexual orientation, and kind of, you know, say, like, I'm not afraid, and you can try to do whatever you want to me, but what matters most is I'm not going to be afraid.